So I know this video is sort of kind of, but also maybe not a little too late, but I wanted to make it anyway since I get asked about favorites all the time. Today I'm going to be covering my personal top creepy internet happenings from the last year, and yes, this is ranked based on my own opinion, which I know doesn't matter and people are going to go to war in the comment section anyway. Keep in mind this video is going to focus mainly on things that I've covered, so depending on how long you've been around, you may or may not have heard of some of these. And if you have, I'm going to throw in some updates if any are available. Be warned, some of these may be considered disturbing to some viewers, but not as disturbing as having internet weirdos snooping around your sensitive information. That's right guys, NordVPN, the condom for your internet, has once again decided to support the channel and sponsor this video. In case you missed the last offer, good news, it's still going on. You can get 75% off a 3-year plan, aka $2.99 per month, plus 1 month absolutely free if you head over to nordvpn.com/reignbot and use promo code reignbot. Yes, $2.99 per month for military-grade encryption across all of your devices, including your phone, so weirdos don't do weirdo shit with your information when you log on at home, work, or especially on public Wi-Fi where who knows what could be going on. The best part? No data logging. Again, all you need to do to take advantage of this offer is head to the link down below, that's nordvpn.com/reignbot, and don't forget to use promo code reignbot to get 1 month absolutely free. With all that out of the way, let's jump straight into number 5. I actually found this account back when it had basically no followers, and I was really hoping it would live up to my expectations, and it definitely did. At the time of writing this, the account has shot up all the way to almost 500,000 followers, and has been covered by pretty much everyone out there, so I can't really imagine that anyone watching hasn't already heard about it by now. But in case you're that one person who missed this, here's the general gist. The account gained traction around May of 2018 with initial posts that talked about the sun vanishing, as the account name suggests. One of the first visuals we get is a news report talking about it, and I'd argue that this is probably one of the most iconic posts this account has ever made due to just how well edited and believable it is.
Panic is taking hold on the nation in response to the sudden disappearance of the sun, with violent riots taking place in just about every major city. We are receiving an influx of reports of ransacking and looting from New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Washington, D.C., with hundreds more isolated incidents coming in hourly. The president made a public statement this morning urging people to remain calm and stay in their homes. Meanwhile, experts are claiming this phenomenon to be an event similar to New England's Dark Day in 1780, and that things will return back to normal.
Of course, this is a way more interesting way of presenting information compared to just, I don't know, taking dark pictures or something. Oh, and that clip now has more than 1 million views, so there's that too. So following this, the protagonist begins noticing other strange things, like this creepy dude standing outside of his house for absolutely no reason at all, and loud, inexplicable sounds accompanied by lights in the sky. The main character, of course, eventually ventures outside to find much the same thing, just on the ground. I'm not sure why, but a lot of people assume that this account has stopped posting, but that simply isn't the case. He actually posted a couple of weeks ago, and things ended in a bit of a cliffhanger. At this point in the story, the main character is driving to a set of coordinates said to be the last location of his friend Danyan. Now, in case you have no idea what I'm talking about or don't remember, early on into the series, the main character wasn't sure if anyone else was even alive until his friend Danyan managed to text him. Naturally, they'd want to team up, but the initial issue that presented itself was the fact that Danyan lived about a 2-day drive away, and given the post-apocalyptic setting, why would anyone want to risk the journey? Of course, Danyan does so anyway, and manages to get himself stranded about 9 hours away from our main character. Meanwhile, the protagonist waits for Danyan to arrive, while several more bizarre things take place, and eventually he starts to become suspicious of Danyan, who may or may not be one of the things that caused the sun to vanish in the first place. Anyway, I'm going to stop here because while there have been a ton of updates, the story actually hasn't concluded yet, so it's probably best if you follow the actual account and get updates there for the full effect. In case you need to catch up, there are only about 200-something tweets in total, which isn't that much at all and completely worth your time if you're into this sort of thing. So why is this on the list? Because it's fresh, unique, and thank God it's actually interesting and not just a bunch of code spammed onto a Twitter account. Definitely one of the best I've ever seen. So next up is number 4, Gregory88. This is actually the only thing in this video that I've never previously covered, so there will be an accompanying video giving it a full exploration. For now, I'm just going to keep this part short and give you the general gist. So this account started posting back in July of 2018, and at first everything about it was sort of benign. Posts about food, binge-watching TV shows, your standard stuff. On August 27th, Greg, the owner of the account, posts that his grandfather died, but also mentions that he never really knew him, and that his mother never had the best relationship with him. Now, fast forward to late October, we get another update from Greg who says weird things have been happening around his house. He immediately clarifies himself, stating that the house technically belonged to his aforementioned grandfather, and that someone from the estate notified him that he'd inherited the property. According to Greg, the house is secluded, and he'd been there for a few days working on trying to sell it, which unfortunately was taking longer than expected. During his short time there so far, he started finding strange things like whatever these are, clothing, an empty notebook, etc. Eventually, Greg starts noticing someone lurking around his property. This happens a few times and he's able to take pictures, but one night he manages to record video. So this is where I'm going to leave the story. For me, it's on the list of favorites because it's just fun. The premise is simple, mysteries have been established, and there's definitely a lot of time and care put into this. A lot of Twitter stories try to cut right into things on the first tweet, but this one actually waited for quite some time before jumping into the creepy stuff. Like I said, there is an accompanying video that I also uploaded today that you can find linked below. Hopefully YouTube put it in the recommended bar, but they're useless, so eh. Moving on, number 3, Ash Vlogs. Oh god, Ash Vlogs. Okay, so I did mention on Twitter that I'm not going to be revisiting this one, and allow me to explain why. And before you say so, yes, I know that I'm technically kind of revisiting it right now, don't get smart with me. Anyway, my original video on this was already over 20 minutes long, and that honestly was the TLDR version. Speaking frankly, it's the type of series that needs a Nightmine length video, probably 2, to actually cover in its entirety. Don't get me wrong, it is a refreshing take on the now overdone creepy YouTube/social media account thing, but if I had to criticize this one at all, which trust me I don't want to because I thoroughly enjoyed it, the only thing I'd have to point out is that after a while it does get a bit tedious, and I'll explain why after giving a brief recap on what the hell this thing even is. Okay, so if you watched my video on this, then for the most part you're good. If not, then I'll attempt to somehow keep this as simple as possible because the story shoots off into different branches rather than being one linear thing. So there's this girl Ash who has a vlog channel, Ash Vlogs, and yes, her vlogs are vlogs of the standard variety, but pretty much every video comes with a link that leads to an unlisted video uploaded to the same channel. These videos are usually shot from someone else's perspective, and in many cases show an alternative angle of the video that we just saw. Just as an example, here's a vlog that Ash posted of her exploring this thingamajig. Now here's the unlisted video. Same place, same time, just someone else filming. From time to time we also hear Ash's next door neighbor Katie and her baby, although we never actually see them and Ash's interactions with them have been through the walls. We also have a few videos where Ashley mentions someone called Car Guy, a weird dude who parks outside of her apartment at odd hours. Just be warned, if you want to experience all of this for yourself, then skip this section and head over to number 3 because I'm about to spoil one of the main reveals. Okay, good. So Ashley isn't actually the one running the Ash Vlogs channel. Like I said, most of her videos have these creepy, stalkerish videos linked in their description, so what that's implying is that Ashley once had videos somewhere else, weird car/stalker guy ripped them and created the Ash Vlogs YouTube channel, along with his behind-the-scenes stuff as a way to mock people looking for her. This is especially driven home with the last few videos on the channel. Again, most of the stuff here is normal up until this video you see here, where Car Guy presumably kidnaps Ash and her friend. This was the last video available at the time that I covered this story, and since then there have been a few more uploads. My apologies for rushing through this, but this whole video is going to be like 10 years long if I don't speed through things. So we have a video called Face Reveal, and in this one we have footage from inside of a bus, and we hear a male voice calling 911. The unlisted video is graphic, so watch out for that. There's nothing crazy here visually, but there is a lot of screaming and begging, so turn your volume down. The next video, titled Where Are You?, features the same person as we last saw. This time, car/kidnapper guy has handed him a phone in order to talk to Ashley. The attached video is dashcam footage with dialogue, which is similar to something we've seen before. The final video so far, at least at the time of writing this, was posted on January 17th and shows a man who appears to be taken prisoner in a room, presumably the guy with the bag over his head from the last 2 clips. The attached unlisted video is on Vimeo, probably because it would be taken down if it were uploaded to YouTube. Now, as you can imagine, this limits me from even talking about it, so at this point I'm going to send you off to watch it for yourself. Again, it is a little messed up, so keep that in mind before you jump in. Okay, so this all seems fairly straightforward, right? Just your standard everything seems innocent but descends into madness storyline, right? Well, guess what? I've basically only scratched the surface with that summary, and that's being generous. If you've seen my full video covering this, then you'll notice that so far here I haven't even mentioned the whole I Know Where She Is Reddit account that kind of started this thing, which also leads into the Raka Raka thing. For those of you out of the loop, before most of this took off, the internet was starting to take note of a sketchy, code-posting Reddit user called I Know Where She Is. This person actually gained a lot of attention on their own and eventually, supposedly and totally not set uply, began basically taunting this YouTube duo called Raka, who are apparently huge, but I'd never heard of them before this, by leaving code saying she's in the floor in some Reddit thing that they were doing. Keep in mind, this was completely out of context, and Raka, as far as the fictional storyline goes anyway, were not aware of what was going on with Ashley until after the discovery of this comment. Again, I just want to emphasize that this dude posted a lot of code-heavy stuff. There's a gigantic list out there of the stuff he posted on Reddit alone. Sometimes it was your standard stuff, and other times the clues would be more visual, and if they were, they'd usually produce this symbol. Guess where the symbol is also heavily featured? Now, while this was all going on, the Raka people also had an issue with a weird Instagram account that was posting warped pictures of their sister. And guess what? It had codes too. Oh, and guess what else? Raka also apparently knew Ashley because they're all from the same area and they were supposed to collab, but Ashley never showed up. My apologies, but I'm going to keep going. So, is the Reddit dude car guy? Pretty much. Remember Katie? I didn't say too much about her in my video, but she has a channel and other stuff too. Oh, and Ashley also has an Instagram, Snapchat, and other stuff where clues are posted. The Reddit guy, yeah, he also posts clues to basically every other platform in existence. Okay, so real talk here, I honestly think that Ash Vlogs is great and can be enjoyed in its, let's just say, diet form. You can get away with watching the channel just fine, and all the other crazy deep cut stuff is optional if you really, and I mean really, want to get into it. The thing is, if I'm going to make a video about Ash Vlogs again, I'm going to want to cover every single detail, and it's just so dense that at this point, as much as I love it, I don't think it'll work in a video format, at least not for me. So seriously guys, if you haven't already, at least give the main channel a watch, try to figure all this out for yourself. The first video I made on it definitely only touches on the surface, but it will help you at least get acquainted with things if you're feeling overwhelmed. Oh, and just in case you're wondering and you missed this, yes, Ash is an actress. She's fine, everyone in the series is acting, no YouTubers were harmed in the making of this series. Now, I know you're about to tell me that this wasn't from 2018, but the climax and end was, so consider this my final update on the series. Oh, and yes, a bunch of my videos on this are missing, and I'll address that in a second. First though, what exactly happened to Dear David? It seems that the story did end, but it's actually rather unclear. After the photos, we were kind of led into a false ending. Things seemed to have calmed down, and Adam tweeted believing it was all over. Not very long later, though, he sent out another tweet pointing out a photo of his that had become inexplicably distorted, and that he thought David was back. This is actually the point where I stopped covering the story, because for a while it seemed like it was a cliffhanger leading into whatever comes next. After about a week of silence, Adam posted this video. There really wasn't any context given, and he didn't actually tweet again until February, only saying that everything is fine. He made another tweet essentially saying the same thing, then one final video tweet, once again of his cat at the door. And for the most part, this is actually where things ended, but we did get one huge update after this. Dear David is getting its very own movie. And oh god, I'm so excited. People have asked me if I was serious when I mentioned this on Twitter, and yes guys, it's for real. Adam even mentioned it on his Twitter a few times. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is why most of my Dear David videos are gone. Nothing against Adam, but now that a studio is involved, I'm not even going to risk some false copyright strike for something I made way before the property was even bought out. Anyway, the movie is going to suck, but what makes this version great? For me personally, at least, I think this may actually be the neatest and best composed Twitter narrative I've ever come across. Is it the most unique in its theme? Not necessarily, but the way each thread was posted created tension with a clear defined setup and payoff. As for the photos, I personally wasn't sure why people were debating if the pictures were real or not. I just enjoyed them in the way that I would any horror movie or TV show. Overall, I think Dear David was something special that gave a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise be interested in niche internet spooks a taste of what's out there. And for that, spooky boy with misshaped head, I salute you. Honorable mentions. Before I get to number 1 in my most favorite creepy content from 2018, I want to talk about a few honorable mentions because I guess that's what you do when you talk about these things, and I also don't want to leave a bunch out. Okay, so there's one I definitely need to at least imply that I'm acknowledging here. It was my biggest video from last year, and it involves a creepy statue with huge eyes and a WhatsApp account, and eventually many, technically. Now the thing is, YouTube has decided that this thing for some reason is worthy of a community guideline strike, according to my friend Gloomy House, who made a video on it and got hit. So I'm just going to assume that you know what I'm referring to here, and if you do, you'll know the topic was talked about to death, so no need for updates. Pop Blast. So this didn't exactly make the list because while it was bizarre, it was more of a dumpster fire than something worth a crap. As you know, in early 2018, a video accusing Shane Dawson of being I don't even think I can say this word, so PEDO, surfaced from a channel called Pop Blast, who just happened to be anonymous. Ultimately, however, the accusations were pretty much disregarded by everyone, especially considering the video exposing him contained no real evidence. Theories started to surface immediately on who Pop Blast was and what their intentions were. Shane himself at one point mentioned thinking that maybe it was part of some meta-conspiracy parody, given that it's one of the topics he's best known for. Others assumed it was done simply for slander. A year later, however, no one has figured out who Pop Blast was or why they made these accusations. The creepy voicemail. This one was one of those things that blew up and fizzled rather quickly. In case you don't remember, this is the voicemail I'm talking about.
Sierra, Delta, Alpha, November, Golf, Echo, Romeo, Sierra, Oscar, Sierra, India, Tango, India, Sierra, Delta.
It was posted by Twitter users straight away and quickly went viral, closing in on nearly 8 million views in just a few days. Now following this, others started reporting getting the same call and voicemail, with many offering up their theories as to its source. Ultimately, however, the truth was never revealed. Last up for our honorable mentions is the Sexy Girl Max story. This one I wanted to make sure to bring up because it actually managed to surprise me. As you may or may not know, Tumblr used to have an issue with prawn bots, you know what I mean, and out of nowhere came one that would ask bizarre questions. If you headed over to its page, things seemed rather typical at first, but if you clicked on the links provided, you'd quickly find yourself thrust into a narrative about a girl and her guardian angel. So given how the story got attention, I'll admit that at first I did misjudge it a bit, figuring that it was nothing more than clickbait to push a bad ARG attempt, but that definitely wasn't the case at all, and in the end the story was actually surprisingly sweet, and best of all, it didn't drag on longer than it needed. So there's no way to build up to this. Number 1, Daisy Brown. This was definitely the most bizarre concept I'd seen in a very, very long time. And no, I know bizarre and scary not necessarily the same thing, but I'm kind of going for quality here, so please calm down. In case you don't know what this is, first of all, let me just say that Daisy Brown is, at least in my opinion, the perfect mix of weird, a little creepy, sad definitely, and having its audience dig to piece the plot together, but not so much so that it becomes a chore. So the story. We had this girl, Daisy, showing us her pet monster named Alan. And yes, that's obviously a puppet, and yes, this is all fictional, and I can't believe I have to say that. Anyway, so the monster thing is already weird enough as it is, but on top of having a monster, Daisy doesn't seem to understand that having a monster is weird. She explains how her father is or was a genetic scientist, and that he and her mother are no longer around, but Daisy is in search of her dad's notes in order to better care for Alan, his creation. One of the biggest features that makes the series interesting is the fact that if you turn on the captions, you'll actually find a second layer of story, usually showcasing someone's thoughts, whether they be people who are alive or things that aren't people at all, so to speak. Through these captions, you'll start to learn bits about Daisy's past, her childhood, what happened to her mother, etc. We also start to figure out why Daisy is so naive. Not only is she oblivious to the fact that monsters aren't normal, but she also doesn't know some pretty basic things like what wrapping paper is or how to even really use the internet. Over time, Alan the monster begins to grow. A lot. And on top of that, he becomes rather aggressive, eventually attacking Daisy several times. In case you want more details on this, just head over to the video I've made about it because there are a few things I'm skipping over here, including this series in direct connection to other well-known internet oddities of the past. Anyway, so my video basically left off at the point where Alan had grown to where he could take up a good portion of the bed. Since then, a few more videos have come out, including the series conclusion, which I won't spoil entirely, but let's just say that Alan is really damn moody in this one and yelling a lot. In the videos leading up to that, we see that Daisy finds and adopts a cat, which Alan promptly wrecks. Rest in peace, Strawberry. We then have a Q&A, an uncomfortable one, where Daisy and Alan both sit down together and try to answer questions given by the users. By this point in the timeline, Alan has basically turned into teenage Groot. In the next video, Daisy is completely pissed. She's crying, talking about feeling useless and not understanding why her father felt the need to make Alan. And by the way, a bit all over the place here, but just let me say that on top of this unique concept and clever means of delivering exposition, this is actually probably the best actress I've ever seen in a YouTube thing. Daisy is incredibly convincing, especially given the subject matter and how ridiculous it can be sometimes. I mean, I love this series, but Alan with the legs is seriously something, and yet Daisy still manages to completely sell fear somehow. The basement of the house where Daisy is living is a huge secret from the beginning of this series. The second to last video involves Daisy finally heading down to the basement after Alan pushes her down there. Now, I know I said I didn't want to spoil the conclusion, but I really want to talk about this, so skip to this time if you don't want spoilers. In case you're not paying attention right now, again, spoilers are coming. Spoilers are coming. Skip to this time to make it to safety. So Daisy is now in the basement and begins looking around, finding things like cases of water, buckets, and a comb with hair in it that clearly hasn't been cleaned ever. There's also what at first seems to be stuff covered by a white sheet. Now, rather than try to explain this, I'll just show you.
Is that you? What? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to startle you.
Oh, why is this happening?
I'm really so sorry. I've just been waiting for you for so long. Oh, you're different from the doctor. You must be his daughter. Oh, I've heard so much about you.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Litha. I assume you're Miss Brown.
The doctor's
Lithop?
Is it the doctor?
Lithops are plants.
Oh, I'm only part plant. The rest of me is real human DNA. Your dad made me.
Made you?
Doctor!
What's going on? I'm not the doctor.
What's going
This
on?
is the doctor's daughter, everybody.
It's not the doctor.
Don't worry, she's here to help us.
Can you help me?
Oh, Miss Brown, it's been so long since anyone's come down here. We've been on our own for some time. God must have sent you.
Junior.
Lithop, is that what your face looks like?
Oh no, this is a mask, silly.
Really?
I can't really take it off myself. Could you help me?
Yeah.
Hi.
So after this meeting, Daisy rushes upstairs, and Lithop follows with the camera that Daisy dropped. Once up top, she finds Daisy crouched down on the ground with Alan standing over her, and the video ends. The subtitles for this one reveal that Curtis, Daisy's father, was trying to figure out a way to bring Daisy's mother back to life via human transmutation. Okay, not really, but it's basically the same idea. He was trying to bring her back via genetic experimentation, which obviously never worked and resulted in failed specimens. This video almost directly leads into the next one, which happens to be the grand finale. In it, Daisy and Lithop are about to make their escape from Alan, but before they could, Alan notices and Daisy kills him. I know, it sounds a little bit anticlimactic, but if you watch the video, it's much better, trust me. Despite Alan now being dead, Daisy flees with Lithop anyway, and the two can be seen making their way down train tracks, through the woods, and eventually ending up at a lake where the story ends. The subtitles depict a conversation between the two about their plan and what could happen if they failed. Okay, spoilers are now over and you have arrived at safety. I know some of you are wondering why I chose to put this at the number 1 spot, so let me explain. Yes, these are puppets. And yes, they're not even close to realistic, but I don't think that's the point here. Like I said earlier, the Daisy Brown story is actually pretty sad. Sure, the premise is ridiculous, but I think it makes what it's able to accomplish all the more impressive. During the final videos, I was genuinely glued to my screen, and while a lot of other things like this are enjoyable to me, it's rare these days for me to have one that shocks me. Between this video and the full coverage I did last year, I still haven't even truly scratched the surface. Sure, there's what happens on screen, but the entire thing can be interpreted in a number of different ways if you want to dig into it. As some have suggested, it's possible that everything we see on screen is completely made up by the main character, since she's an unreliable narrator. Another way to look at it as a metaphor for several things, including loneliness, grief, and possibly even coming out. Now, I do acknowledge that if you've only seen a few Daisy Brown videos or only watched them at face value, all of what I just said may sound completely insane, but I actually think it's pretty obvious. No matter what the intended theme was, the actress who plays Daisy is regularly screaming, crying, and seriously giving the best and most convincing performance I'd ever seen on a YouTube channel. And again, keep in mind that she's not acting against human characters, she's acting against a papier-mâché potato. Guys, my point is that I get asked about favorites a lot, and generally speaking I can't give a clear defined answer, but I've been doing this for 4 years now, and Daisy Brown definitely sticks out, and if I could, I'd hand the channel my seal of approval. Not that that means a lot, but you know. With all that said, this video has probably gone on for too long, but if you're still here, thank you so much for watching throughout 2018, and thank you for sticking with me until now. I'll see you all again next time.